Well, with everybody's permission, it's quarter of, and we'll start. I'd like to welcome you all. Many of you have braved through, and this is your third time, three weeks in a row, listening to me. That shows that you have a great deal of intestinal fortitude, so thank you very much. Obviously, our topic in this third and final week is, what is wealth and whose is it? Today we're going to discuss financial planning and a tool that we can use to plan. It's called a budget. Now let me tell you what a budget is not. A budget is not a document one spouse uses to beat the other over the head with. It is not a one-time event, something that we do and then place in a drawer and try to forget as quickly as possible. It's a working tool. I recommend you do them in pencil, although tonight I gave you all pens at your table. Didn't have enough pencils. But for it to be successful, you, or both of you if you're married, must be absolutely in agreement on one thing. We will not spend more money than we earn. Now, by the way, that's hard for many people. We've already talked about the fact that 54% of Americans spend more money than they earn. That's more than half. And we know that we have to put safeguards into place. Some of those safeguards is we must save in advance for the things that we know will happen in life. If we know they're going to happen, they're not an emergency. I have a little sign on my desk. It faces people who are coming to see me. Okay, the one, I'll tell you the one that faces me too. It says, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Somebody that walks in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon of April the 15th for me due to their tax return, I'm just going to chuckle. Okay, that's a colossal lack of planning. You had 3.5 months to get ready. Other examples. Your hot water heater will only last 7 to 8 years. Your roof, they expect to break in 15. You might get 18 out of it. Your car, when they're selling it to you, it's going to last forever. It doesn't. Okay? They're maintenance free. Only for the first 30,000 miles. So you have to plan for them. You have to plan for some other things that you don't like to plan for. You need to set a little bit aside to cover medical problems. They're going to happen. You've got deductibles if you've got medical insurance. Okay? Somebody's going to break a tooth. Child's going to get one knocked out in a ball game. It's life. And we have to take it into account. If we don't, we're immediately headed to the credit card. But it wasn't an emergency. Now, there are emergencies. But I'm just pointing out that things that you know will happen are not emergencies. And therefore we need to plan for them. Also, replacement and retirement. At some point in time in your life, you're going to say, no. Now, you can only say no if you've planned. sometimes others will say no for you. And the fact that you haven't planned is irrelevant to those people. And it's not good to be in that position. So we need to plan for that. And for that car that you're going to have to replace. Or the miracle of miracles, your cell phone, it does not last forever. Okay? Now, we've already discussed debt habits, and we'll touch on those a little bit. But it gets worse. The average net worth, and let's define that. Net worth. All that you own, the value of all that you own, minus the value of all that you owe. The difference between those two, that's your net worth. If you were able to liquidate and cash out, your net worth is what you'd have left over. The average net worth of an American age 65 is $1. The average net worth of a 16-year-old is almost $100. They have more money than we do. We don't let them have credit cards, typically. So to break this cycle, we're going to have to change our behavior. Dave Ramsey, in his column this week, said successful personal finance is 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge. So in weeks 1 and 2, we discussed what God's Word shows us, the habits and attitudes we should have as His bankers, His stewards, and thus what should be our attitude. If it's His attitude, it needs to be ours. So today we're going to concentrate on practical techniques and head knowledge. By the way, until 1954, it was a requirement in education in the United States of America to teach personal finance in middle school, to graduate from 8th grade. Many schools stopped at 8th grade back then. You had to have a personal finance course. It's too bad we stopped. Now, I've given everybody a handout. Everybody goes, oh no, the handout. Yes. Okay. The first page is a blank budget. Okay. It's very simple. There are 4 or 5 different people you can go on the internet, and theirs is going to be different, but they're going to get us to the same place. This is the one I use. Okay. You notice percentages are down the sides, but they begin with net spendable income. Because the metrics that I'm going to go over with you are based on that. The second item is a tool to help you decipher the information on your W-2. Most people think first of all, that their income is the take-home pay. It's not. Okay. And we have deductions. Some of them need to be included in our budget. Okay, so let's look at this. By the way, I've picked an average wage of $40,000 because that is, according to both the U.S. Census and the Dalton-Woodfield Chamber of Commerce, the average wage of a resident of Woodfield County in the year 2020. That's where I got that number. Okay, that $40,000 a year is $770 a week. But this budget is going to be based on a month, not a week. Why? Many of the expenditures we make are once a month. So there's just a couple that we do weekly, and it's easy to convert them to month than it is to try to convert everything else to week. especially since some of them are guesses anyways. Good guesses, but nonetheless guesses. So for a family, husband and wife both working, I did it times 2. Okay, and out of that paycheck stub, you see this person's employer offers a 401k. Not everybody does. Some do, some don't. Most people that offer a 401k, or if you work for a nonprofit or a government, a 403b, essentially the same thing. Okay, the 401k, the employers often will say, if you save 4% of your paycheck, we will match it and give you 2. You save 4, we'll give you 2. Now, one of the reasons that the employers are doing that is that they do not believe in the Great Pumpkin or the Easter Bunny, nor that Social Security will be here in 20 years to take care of us. We keep pushing it out. Now they're out about 8 years before they're going to have to do something radical. Hey, I've got white hair. It doesn't affect me a lot, but you all, it really affects. Now they're going to do something. It's not going to go away to 0, but it will not provide for all of your needs in retirement. It's just not going to, folks. So that means you have to plan, because it's not an emergency. It's known, and you need to deal with it. Okay. We also, you notice I list insurances. Okay, medical insurance, that's an average. Life insurance, long-term disability, that's what LTD stands for. Wonderful, another statistic. You are 8 times more likely to be disabled before 65 than to die. The terrible thing about being disabled is you're still alive, but now you don't have a paycheck. Now, there is some programs through Social Security, and I'm not diminishing those. Okay? But long-term disability insurance, especially if your employer offers it, is how you take care of that risk, because life is full of risk. Just like life insurance. Okay, the way that you get that house paid off when you get killed in a car wreck at age 40, so your family has a place to live, is through life insurance. Okay, and those are average LTD and life insurance premiums. Okay, so this person out of their gross paychecks got $31 for their 401k, $126 for various insurance programs. So they're pre-tax deductions. That means these items, since they're coming out through their paycheck, are coming out and they're not paying any Social Security or income taxes on these benefits. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So then we come down to $613. That's the taxable portion of their gross pay. And now Social Security wants $47. Federal government wants $40, state of Georgia wants $20. Obviously, these are averages. They might bear no relationship to what's going on in yours, and everybody's payroll programs are slightly different anyways. So this person's got a net take-home pay of $506. Okay? If we take it now and move it to a month, because to use the budget effectively, we got to get to a month, and the husband and wife both work. Okay, the gross is $666. Taxes are $928. See, that's down there. Okay, I'm on page 3, by the way. Okay, $928 for taxes. And you notice these other things, 401k, that's stuck over in number 10. Well, wait a minute, that didn't come home with me. No, but that was a conscious decision that you made. Insurance is down here in number 6. Those are conscious decisions that you make coming out of your pay. You had to sign paperwork at the office. You didn't have to sign any paperwork for them to take the taxes out. Okay? The other stuff you had to sign for. So this is a conscious decision. Not a bad one, a good one. Okay? So here we have $6,666 gross. And then we get to line 1 and realize I am not raising money for the church or any ministry. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, it's all God's. The question that you need to, I think, deal with is, what does God's Word have to say with it? Now we hear this word tithe, which means tenth. That's all it means. Okay? We've heard lots of sermons and Bible studies about, well, we live under grace, so we don't have to. Great, understand. Okay, then we have, 10 is this, and then you should have, according to the Old Testament, 2 more. Well, that's how the Israelis handled their government and social programs. I've read those too. Okay, but you need to come to grips with how much of this do we put into God's kingdom before we spend the rest? That's the question. Now, I've met with literally hundreds, my wife says thousands, hundreds of people dealing with their budgets and finances. Started a long time ago, 1993. And I've seen people in just terrible shape, but they said, you know, we have decided that we are going to be God's stewards. We're His bankers. We have messed it up, but we are going to do that. But there's no money in our budget. And so I would look them in the eye today. This has moved forward from 1993 language to 2022. Do you go to Starbucks once a week for a $5 coffee? A lot of them say, yeah. I said, can't you give up one of those? Let's just start off with what you can do. You can say, God, I'm willing to do that. And allow God then to allow it to grow. Okay? Again, we talked in lesson 1. It's all His. And if we make our decisions based on that, we end up in better places. So, I'm going to leave your giving up to you. If you want to have a discussion about, well, what should I do? I think it should be. My first question it would be to you is, have you prayed about it? And the second question would be, what do you think it should be? Most people tend to get to the right answer after they've prayed about it. Okay? So now we've got our giving decided and $928 for taxes. We subtract those two from the gross income and we end up with our net spendable income. That's how much we're going to be dealing with in our budget. And see, I can't calculate that number because our giving is up to you. But again, we did place it first, so that even if it's a $5 cup of Starbucks, you gave it to God first. Now, these averages, percentages. Okay, you know, we transferred the information from this fake W-2 to your budget. The percentage is are averages. Now, the first and foremost thing is, did you notice spending is 100%? Net spendable income is 100%. This person is not one of the 54%. They did not spend more money than they earned. Okay? First thing the couple or you have to make that decision is, I will not spend more money than I earn. Okay, this won't work. This process won't work if you won't make that. Now, sometimes people have technical problems and those have to be dealt with separately. But we're talking about heart. So these percentages are averages. The percentages will be different than yours. Not one of you is average. I'm not average. Now, I will tell you, just about everybody I've met with for these years can overspend in one category. And the reason they can do that is they are cheap in another 2 or 3 that make it up. I've even met with a reasonable number, much smaller, but a reasonable number of people that can overspend in 2 categories because they are really cheap in the rest of them. Or they've made decisions to be really cheap in the others because of blank, blank, blank. But I have yet to find anyone who can overspend in 3 categories and make this work. You just can't be cheap enough. Only Rumpelstiltskin took his, nourishment from the air. Okay, the rest of us, we're going to eat. Okay, so it just will not work. So let's go down through the budget and let's talk about some of the things. If I were a bank, and I'm not, and I made mortgage loans, and I don't, I would tell you what the right mortgage loan is. It would be with somebody who wants to buy a house. They've got 20% cash down. They want to spend, obviously they want me to finance 80%. I'm willing to finance it for 30 years. But the mortgage payment, not including the insurance and taxes, just the mortgage premium payment, is 25% or less of their net spendable income. I know that loan is a good loan, and because it's a good loan, I will not charge the person coming to me PMI, which is mortgage insurance. I charge mortgage insurance to people who don't meet that criteria because they have a much higher probability of defaulting on the mortgage. If you want me to take more risk, you're going to pay for it. Now, do many young couples starting out have 20% cash down for their house? The answer is no. I know that. Okay? So they're in a house typically where they're spending more than 30% of their income on getting into that house. For their finances to work, what are they forced to do? Spend less in other categories. By the way, it's normally 3 years. Okay? Now, things have radically changed over the course of the last 6 months. Prior to 6 months ago, you could buy a house for 3 and 4% down because the prices of the houses were going like this. They're being a little pickier right now than that. But you can get in a house, you're going to be paying PMI, and your premiums are going to be more. But realize that if you make that decision, it must be because you're committed to spend less. Now, as we look through housing, okay, you're going to have insurance and taxes. If you owe money on the bank, on the house, the bank will make sure they get it from you monthly. That's a good thing. I find sometimes seniors that have a house paid for that forget about that and even forget to pay their taxes for a couple of years until they get a letter from somebody who's getting ready to buy their house at auction for the taxes that they didn't pay the last 2 years. That's not good financial planning. So plan for it. It's going to happen. Okay, utilities. Now, some of us have North Georgia Electric. I'm one of those. TVA's raising our rates. Okay, some people live in Dalton Utilities. Some of the lowest utility rates in the nation. Okay, but your house really only works effectively if you have electricity and water and sewer. And so you might as well plan on those. And yes, they will cut you off if you don't pay. So it's another one of those things that's really good to have in the budget. Now, something that's changed radically over the last number of years. I got my first cell phone in, I'm guessing 1991. Okay? It was a bag phone. It was big. It weighed about 20 pounds. Okay? And it cost 75 cents a minute. So the only time I used it was if I got to send somebody a bill. Okay? Then they changed it and they said if you speak for less than 30 seconds, we won't charge you. Bang. Okay? Well, individually, they're not charging quite that badly. But if you've got a family of 4 and they provided all of their kids with cell phones and data packages, and they've got internet and a data package at the house, and this number can be a big number. And so what we sometimes need to do is shop hard and think through what do we need to do. I saw a young man, he was 3, in a restaurant, and he had a cell phone in his hand. And I was really looking at it because he was into it, okay? And then I realized it was a flip phone and it wasn't doing him any good at all. And I'm going, yes, those parents knew what kind of a phone to give to a 3-year-old. But our neighborhood has a community pool. And I saw 2 girls in junior high school talking to each other. One was on one side of the pool, one was on the other. They were talking on their cell phones to each other because they were more comfortable doing that than having a real face-to-face conversation with the same person. And these 12-year-olds, parents, bought them cell phones. Now, again, if it fits into your budget and God has told you as parents that's a good decision, that's not up to me. Okay? I'm just saying you have to put that number on your budget and you have to decide. Okay? Maintenance. Okay? Again, most people's budgets, we've talked about it a little bit before, they don't put anything down. Did you know you're gonna have to rebuild your house every 50 years? You are. Totally rebuild that house every 50 years. So, take the value of your house, divide it by 600, that's 50 years, by the month, and put 1/600th of the value of your house down for maintenance. Unfortunately, that will about work out. Remember that hot water heater? If you want a real shock, go downstairs to the basement or the garage or wherever it is and go find out when the date is stamped on the little tag. You can go, oh no, it's 8 years old. I'm on the knife edge right now. It's going to blow up on me at any time. Connie and I have been married 49 years. We've had 4 hot water heaters explode on us, so we know what that's like. So I might have planned ahead, but I wasn't real wise in going down and eliminating the hot water heater at the right time. Okay, again, the roof, all these other things. You've got to paint houses. Okay, even if you do it yourself, paint costs money, more today than it did 2 years ago. So take it into account. Other. Anything else relative to your house that you're paying for. For some people, they have an exterminator come by. Great. Just put it in your budget. Then my favorite one, food. I love food, by the way. Okay? Reading and food are my hobbies. I love to cook. Okay, some people enjoy going and spending their afternoon with a round of golf. I am far happier spending the afternoon in the kitchen with knives, taking all of my frustrations out on the vegetables. And when we're done, everybody is smiling, including me. Food. Here's my definition of food on this budget. It's what I spend at the grocery store. If you buy motor oil at the grocery store, and you can, that would be in your food budget, whatever you're spending there. Now, people have a tendency to lie to themselves about this number. Okay? Doesn't offend me, doesn't affect me. Okay? How much do you really spend at the grocery store? Okay, some people, my wife, if she was sitting right here, would tell you this was true. She loves to go to the grocery store. She goes 5 times a week. But we have a budget, and she knows when all that money's gone, she stops going. But to her, Kroger is a social event. Okay? The social event's fine. The question is, how much do we spend? Okay? And the important thing to do is to find out. Now, I also know groceries have gone up 8 to 10% since January 1st. Okay, and a lot of the increases are hidden. Okay, they used to, years ago, you got 16 ounce in this bag. Then they cut it to 14. It's 12 and a half now. Okay. So in order to hold the price, they're giving you less. It doesn't matter. Prices are up 8 to 10% since the 1st of January. And that's real. Because a lot of people, their pay hasn't gone up since the 1st of January, 8 to 10%. So it's, these are the hard things that all of us are having to deal with our budgets. And we can't pretend they don't exist. All that does is create problems. So, nationally, what's one of the things that people have done because food costs have gone up? Any guesses?
Eat out.
Did he eat out less?
Really?
Much less. Okay, restaurants across the nation, people are eating less. Now, fast food, especially Chick-fil-A, okay, they haven't been in years. But most restaurants, the answer is no. For multiple reasons. One, they can't get help. People aren't coming out. A lot of reasons. But we, as a nation, are eating out less. And that's been one of the things that we've helped do. People are, by the way, also cooking more and using less prepared foods. Okay? Again, that's economic. Now, my hobby is I prefer fresh food, okay? But people have said, well, wait a minute, I can have it already made, or I can make the spaghetti with meat sauce myself and make a big pot and feed us, for a lot less money. The ingredients in fast food are 30 cents on the dollar. Okay? So if you bought prepared food at the supermarket or fast food at a fast food restaurant, the food costs 30%. So that's why people have been doing that, to give themselves a little more cushion in the midst of this terrible inflation. And I am not in any way diminishing the impact it's having on every one of you, and Connie and I as well. It's real. A car. Last week I told you the great news about cars. You all were excited, right? Okay, the newest car was 47 what? Somebody would have memorized it.
The newest car was what?
The average new car cost what? I had looked that up for us last week. $48,300 is the average new car. The average payment, $743, which means it takes for the average American, okay, 42 complete weeks of pay. Remember the little sheet that we had, $770? They're getting close. They're getting close. And by the way, it's down, this was June 30th's numbers, it's down about 0.5%. But for those of you who watch car ads on television during the football games, what two major things have changed in the car ads from a year and a half ago? Two very major things.
Awesome.
Pardon?
Or down payment?
Okay, down payments are up. That's a good one. That wasn't on my list, but you're right, so there are three. They're now charging you interest. They're not, they used to say interest-free because they had built into the price, but they're now 1.5% and 2% on top of that. Okay? They used to finance everything for 84 months. Right? 7 years. They're not doing that now. Because they're only charging you 1.5% or 2% interest. Okay? So they pulled it down some. But that car is going to break. Okay? I would have liked, personally, to have bought a new car, which to me means a new used car, because I'm really cheap. Okay? A new used car. But I looked at it in January, and I'm going, well, I can't afford that. Okay? They wanted more for a car that was 1.5 years old then than the same car was brand new the year before. I'm going, whoa. So I am driving a landmine. Okay, there are 177,000 miles on my car. That sucker is going to die and leave me at the side of the road, and I know it. I have saved the money to replace it. It is in the bank. I am just having a terrible time with myself of parting with it. And my current car, based on the Blue Book value, is slightly above the value of what the guy that will come by and haul it off for cash. Okay? So I'm still driving, but I understand. Okay? Be sure you've got your insurance. Gas and oil, I mean, yeah, it's gone down a little bit. Georgia's gas tax is going to come back on after the election. Okay? And we want it because we want our roads to work. We all know it was, I'm not picking on any political party, but all of the politicians voted. There was one person in the General Assembly that voted against lowering the gas tax. Okay? Obviously, he wasn't planning on getting reelected. But everybody else voted for it because it was something everybody liked. Okay, let's talk about insurance just a little bit. The banker won't let you have a house loan without house insurance. You're not supposed to be able to get a car without car insurance. Especially collision if you owe money on it. Okay, reasonable people have insurance because bad things happen to good people. And I don't mean just the fact that the car got wrecked. I mean, I hit somebody and they got hurt. Or somebody else hit me and they didn't have insurance, so I had to have insurance because they didn't on me. But it's important to have those things. I already talked about long-term disability, why that was important in life. Then we get to the next category, debts. We're going to skip over it. But I will place a marker here. I started suggesting this to people who told me that they were addicted to credit cards a long time ago. And I appreciated their honesty. That was a major statement to them. Okay, to break bad habits with credit cards, take a coffee mug, fill it with water. Take the credit cards and put them in the mug. Put the mug in the freezer. Now, you can thaw it out. If you are planning in advance and you know you're going to use a credit card, this, especially if somebody's got a credit card problem, okay, or they have an emergency that they can't handle any other way, but they won't be using the microwave because that will obliterate the chip and the bar on the back. You're going to have to wait till it thaws out. Okay, somebody said, well, I can pour it under hot water, and the answer is, yeah, you can. But you might bend the credit card if the water's too hot. Why don't you instead just think about it for a couple of hours before you go spend the money? By the way, if you need a coffee mug, come to my office. I'll hand it to you. It's got advertising on it, so we're allowed to give it away. Okay, now we're going to come back to entertainment as well. In the area of clothing, be real. We have 3 seasons. Okay, some families spend too much on it, others spend too little, and finding somebody who's just right, that doesn't exist. Okay, and this typically is a negotiation point between two sides of the family, and therefore I am not going to enter the lion's cave or for that, okay? I know that people who are really in trouble debt-wise, this is one of the areas that they have to cut back on and do. And there are alternatives, and so for those people, you know, certain things you can't eliminate. I mean, kids that are growing, but there are places to go to get clothing inexpensively. I know when our kids were young, before Connie went to the full markup store, she would go to Providence and see what was in there that fit for our kids, because they were only going to be in it for 4 months and then they were going to wear it out. So, but those are decisions everybody has to make. And I'm not saying you should live like the Winters. We're idiots. I mean, okay, you're much saner than we are. But the idea is have a plan and realize there are 3 seasons, and have a budget set up for your family. Your kids are going to go to school in August, and they're going to have clothes because they outgrew everything that you had that they wore in April and May. And so for you to pretend otherwise just means you're lying to yourself. So don't do that. That's a bad thing. Okay? Okay, savings, again, we've talked about it. The goal, and we've written it in here, is 1/13. That's, by the way, that's 9% of your pay, of your 8% of your net spendable income. And the reason why that's good is if you start at age 25, very few people do, and save that 9%, when you get to age 65, you will not have a retirement problem. Well, people say, well, I'm not 25. Great, start now. Start now. Now, debt's going to come first, okay? Because right now the stock market is not going up really fast. You know, but again, if your employer is matching 4 on 2, the market is not falling 50%, so you're still better off, okay? But get rid of your own debt, because interest rates, they went up this week. They're going up again on Thanksgiving, and they're going up again in January. The Fed has told us that. Okay, the average price, a mortgage on a house will be 8% by the middle of January. Credit cards will be much higher as well. And that's just going to happen. That is, just is. That's not political. That just is. Medication. Save something. You know, allow the child the freedom to break a tooth. Okay? I also see people who say, well, I can't afford it, so they allow, you know, a tooth or something to go on, and it gets a lot more expensive because they didn't take care of it when they should have. So be sure you have some money saved for that. And if you're as healthy as you pretend that you are, if you really are that healthy, at the end of the year, that means you're going to have a little pot of money you did not spend. And you will figure out how to spend that. I have absolute confidence in your ability to figure out how to do it. But if you don't have it and you have to do it, see, then you're going to call it an emergency, and it wasn't an emergency. The 2 ones in miscellaneous that are hard, okay, are allowances and lunches and Christmas. Okay, it's September. How many people here, you don't raise your hands, I know that, okay, have already determined how much money they're going to spend on gifts at Christmas time? If you haven't done that, have you figured out how you're going to pay for it? Do you get a 13th check? By the way, that's very European. If you work for a European company, they typically give you a month check, a 13th check in December. We don't have many of those here. I'm going to get a bonus. Great. Is it sort of guaranteed, and will you agree not to spend more than that? I don't know what yours is. All I know is it requires thought in advance. Okay? And to give people things we cannot afford is not a wise idea. We're doing it for the wrong reason. At the moment we've decided to give something to somebody we cannot afford, we're doing it because of our ego, not because of any other reason. Since I'm a foodie, I'd say go make them some homemade cookies. They would love that instead. Okay? Lunch. Now, the world's changed in the area of lunch a great deal in the last 3 years. An extremely large part of the workforce doesn't even go to the office anymore. Okay? Great, so they can eat at home. Okay? But there's a lot of folks that do. How often do we eat out for lunch? Is it because we work at the school and we can eat for $2.50 and that's a deal, and it is? Okay? Or what's our reason? Or do we take lunch? All I know is we need to think through that. Sometimes people that are working on their budget say, well, it's a social event and I'm going to go have lunch with the group on Friday. Great, that's a good decision. Just plan for it. How much are you going to spend for lunch? Okay, it's sort of like top one. Entertainment, recreation. I have people that come and lie to themselves all the time. I don't care if you lie to me. Okay, doesn't bother me at all. They say, oh, we don't spend any money on entertainment and recreation, or we won't spend any more from today forward. That won't last 2 weeks. Or if you do, you and your spouse will be hating each other at that point. Instead, make a reasonable statement. We realize that we need to adjust some things. And we also realize these family activities are important. So we're going to set aside X dollars so that we can have a meal or do something twice a month. Far more reasonable than trying to do it on nothing. Because that won't work. I got some scars to prove it. Just, it will not work. Okay? Now, one other thing. I've marked mine up here. And I'm going to tell you what I've marked. Yours is not color marked. This is a trick that Connie and I came up with in 1993 when we decided to go on a budget. Okay, now, I'm an accountant. I'm the laziest accountant you've ever met. You know, I do not have a giant spreadsheet. It's far too much work. You know, after I've worked and come home, I want to spend time with the family, read a book, cook, maybe go to sleep. Okay, something. So, the idea of putting in some internal breaks. Okay? Connie and I realized that things we did every week, one of them was food. Okay? 5 times a week for Connie, but every time for a week we're going for food. We're going to put gas and oil in our cars weekly. Okay? We're going to have this eating out budget item, even if it's that we're gonna do it twice a month. Okay? Toiletries and cosmetics. One's a Kmart bill, pardon me, it doesn't exist anymore. One is the Walmart bill, and the other one is the Kroger bill. Okay, Kroger's over at food, Walmart's at toiletries and cosmetics, beauty and barber, laundry and cleaning, allowances and lunches, cash. By the way, always put $25 in that one on your budget, because you're going to have forgotten something small, and if you put $25 in, you'll be able to buy it. Okay, so we add all of those things up, and we divide them by 4.333. That's our weekly allowance. And we went to Teller yourself and got cash. Wonderful thing about that. Okay, the first week we did it, and we did this a little bit, or I did it a little bit, to set a tone for the family, and the family went along with it. Okay, by the way, we go to the Tell Yourself on Thursday. Sometimes Connie does it before dawn, which means she does it Wednesday. Okay. I never check the date. Okay, and I get my part. I pick up the laundry and cleaning and gas for my car and so on. She gets her part. Okay? She did the major grocery shopping on Friday. She did this, that, and the other. We went out to eat that Friday night. We went to a football game over in Lafayette. Our team won. It was a great night. At the end of the evening, we were broke. We didn't have any money. Now, that's not true. We both had a $20 bill hidden in the back of our wallets so that we knew if we ran out of gas, we weren't going to have to push the thing uphill, okay? And I still recommend that. Maybe it's 30 now. And so Monday, we ran out of milk. Goodness gracious. Can't I? No. We said no. Oh. So we drank tea and water and orange juice, and then we ran out of that, the orange juice on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, it was tea and water and some instant cocoa mix that was left in the cupboard. It was out of date, but we drank it anyways. And then Thursday, we went and we did it again. But it told everybody we were serious. We were going to stick on our budget. Now, if we don't spend it all, but great, just keep cash. It's fine. You can use it next week or whatever. Okay? Connie, for a while, had an envelope in a drawer. She put the extra in it because she really wanted to make sure it stayed extra. And that was great. Not a problem. Okay? But we never spent more. Now, we had absolutely no shame. We got to the grocery store and the bill was $85 and we only had $75 for that. We put $10 back. Didn't bother us at all. We had no shame. Okay, because we were going to stay on our budget. Now, I'm not telling you that you need to do that. And I will tell you that Connie and I today do not do this. We have learned what our lifestyle is, and we now have a mechanism to check it. And I doubt 1 month in 20 that we've exceeded the budget. Because we've just learned to be content, and we know that our budget is this, and we spend that way. But for 10, 12 years, that's what we did, so that we could stay on budget, and did. And that just, we talked about it last time. We would tell the kids, oh, can we get cookies? No, I can't afford it this time. I had to put something back. Okay? Nothing wrong with children hearing, I can't afford this. Because they cannot afford everything they want, just like we can. And it's good for them to hear that. For them to know that they're loved, they're appreciated. That yes, you get many special things, but we can't afford everything that you might want, or that we might want, because we just can't. So, to shock you. The first budget you work on won't work. It won't. You're going to spend far more money because you're going to have included things you've never included before if you've done it right. Okay? Repairs for the house, some money to repair and replace the car, so on. Okay? And you're going, oh my. So all that means is you have to go back and do version 2 and 3 and maybe 4 till we get it right. See, the commitment is we're not going to spend more money than we earn. And removing that pressure from our lives makes the little bit of pressure we put on our lives to stay on budget so very small in comparison. Okay? You will not lose a night's sleep because you don't have a credit card bill to pay tomorrow that you can't afford. If you don't have a credit card bill that you can't afford. It's like people who, they're up in their years, and I appreciate that, whose houses are paid for. They sleep just fine in that house that doesn't have a mortgage on it. And that should be, I hope, people's goal. Okay? If we know we can't spend more, that means we have to spend less. Now, if you truly have a problem, then maybe you need to speak to somebody and work through it with somebody. I will share with you, I'm willing to do that with you if you want to do that with me. And I'm going to have a sign-up sheet here. As I shared last week, normally I would do this next Saturday, but Connie's having a little procedure done on Friday, and I am to don my white cap and my apron and be Florence Nightingale on the weekend, so I will be taking care of her. So this Saturday, the 8th, there's a list of times from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5:30. And if none of these work for you, then just talk to me. We can figure out at some point in time if you want to do that. Now, if you're going to do this, what I'm going to ask you to do is to bring your tax return for last year and your current paycheck stubs. And, if appropriate, a list of who you owe and how much you owe them and what your monthly payment is. And then for your use, I'm not going to look at it, don't want to look at it, your check register, so you can look up things as to how much you're paying for certain things. Okay, those are the pieces of information we're going to need to have an effective time. P.S. Those are the pieces of information you need to have an effective budget. Okay, but if you'd like to sit down with me, feel free. I'd be delighted to talk with you. Okay, and my memory is absolutely terrible. When I get up from talking to somebody, I never remember anything we talked about. Okay, questions? That's the normal number of questions I get from having done this seminar. Well, don't be afraid to come up and ask them one-on-one. And again, if you'd like to meet with me, I'd be delighted to meet with you.
I have one, Larry.
Okay.
Under number 3 on housing for maintenance, on here it says 136 or 360 of the house, and I think you mentioned 600.
Typo.
So it's supposed to be 600?
Yeah. Your house should last 50 years. Now, if you've got a house that's really seen a lot of age, maybe you have to put in more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry, on number 10, you had 266 after the side highlighted. What is that?
on number 10?
Yeah, savings.
Well, that's what John and
That's the
Mary-
money that came out of the 401K, out of the paycheck.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's 266 plus. The 266 is for retirement.
I see.
Aren't you going to save a little bit something extra just because of life? Great question, though. Thank you for asking. And we stand dismissed because our kids are going to be getting up.